This is a series of 17 photographs and digital paintings by Leslie Barron. They all have one thing in common. They all contain an image of Reading's last remaining gas tower, number 4. It sits at the bottom of Cumberland Road in Reading East, close to the River Kennet. The tower was built in 1916, but is shortly to be demolished to make way for luxury flats. What remains of the original is the guide frame, which used to house a massive cylinder of gas. The guide frame is a skeletal, cylindrical framework made of a latticework of iron and steel, rusting in places. It stands approximately 33 metres high and 22 metres from one side to the other. It's made of 18 slender columns, connected by 18 horizontal metal girders that wrap around it in 4 rings. The sections between the columns and girders form squares, braced by slim rods, fastened in the shape of an X. On some of the columns, metal ladders are attached, running the full height of the guide frame. Even though it's an industrial construction, the tower has a strangely delicate appearance in most of these images. The sky is visible through it, its changing colours captured by Leslie Barron's camera and her digital paintings. The first image is a colour photograph. The colours have undergone an extreme adjustment, so there is little naturalistic about them. The photo shows the gas tower in the far distance, viewed from the River Thames. The river is a bright turquoise blue, reflecting the same colour in the sky. The dense mounds of trees and bushes that line the banks are an intense gingery red, casting an otherworldly reflection across the water. In the foreground, a patch of spiky reed stands at the edge of the river. The water's surface is ruffled by the current. A single swan paddles nearby, its long neck bent towards the water as it peers for signs of food. Near the right-hand bank, a blue and white barge chugs towards the gas tower. Waterfowl are resting on the right-hand bank, and there's a group of them in the river. A tiny figure is visible walking on the left-hand bank as the river turns to the right and vanishes from sight. Above it, the gas tower stands. The sky through its metal structure is the palest pink, changing to an ever deeper shade of turquoise blue above. The second photograph is a much closer image of the gas tower. It looms up, shot from a canal path below, black against a sky that begins on the right with a deep midnight blue, before lightening to royal blue, then a brilliant cobalt, more akin to the Mediterranean than Reading. The ragged edges of the changing colours are like faint brushstrokes. Gradually, the colour fades into a paler blue, ending on the left in a shade so pale it's almost white. At the base of the gas tower, early budding trees are visible through the metal structure, and 2 vans are parked, displaying the red and yellow warning chevrons on the backs. Though probably white, the in-camera effect has washed them with blue. A footbridge with metal railings cuts across the centre of the next photograph, spanning the River Kennet. The gas tower stands silhouetted on the right, the light of the low sun gleaming through its frame, glaring so bright it blots out a section. Above, brown-tinged clouds hang in a blue sky. The ripples in the river below are coloured with a subdued golden light. As the river turns to the right, the left bank is visible. A white lorry is parked, and the white window frames of red brick terrace houses are faint in the distance. Leslie Barron created a Facebook page and asked for photos of the tower, which he's turned into digital paintings. The first painting in this collection is based on a photograph by Catherine McCann. Like all the following paintings, it's been created on an iPad with an app called Procreate. The image is a nighttime view of the gas tower. It shows the tower on the right, painted from a low angle and silhouetted against a dark blue sky. Tiny spots of lights twinkle through the trees at its base, and 3 swans sail on the river in front of it. On the opposite bank, 3 street lights glow, pouring lines of white light down the river. Their beams have turned the sky above into a swirl of paler blue clouds. The second painting is in a completely different style to the first. It's in stark black and white, with the tower a small presence just right of centre, rising above the black crowns of trees. The sky around it is white. To the left, a building is rendered in blocks of black. A tall black rectangle reaches to the top of the frame. Below it is the gentle slope of a roof, ending in a short ledge. Attached to the front face of this building are the shapes of 3 small balconies, one below the other. The building to the right is larger, indicating it may be closer to us. A black rectangle at the edge of the frame has a balcony attached to it, protected by curved railings. The next painting could be mistaken for a black and white photograph, so meticulous is the detail. Leslie Barron has said that what is depicted in her paintings is not necessarily what she sees. She uses a mixture of imagination and memory. It's a view of the River Thames, its broad expanse in the foreground. A bank of grass and spiky river plants with suggestions of soft, fluffy flowers spreads from left to right, almost filling the lower edge of the frame. Beyond it, the river is drawn in fine lines, flicking in different directions. These mimic the flow of water and build up bands of darker patches to simulate shadows from trees and buildings on the bank, and the scudding of grey and white clouds above. The gas tower is in the centre of the painting, sitting on the far left-hand bank. On the left, it's partially obscured by unusual plants, trees like round pom-poms, and tall ornamental trees with needle-thin spines. To the right of the tower is a pylon, and the overhead supports for railway power lines. A small building with a spire sits to the far right. The atmosphere is one of calm and solitude. This is actually the first digital painting Leslie attempted, after she felt that an evening photograph of the tower didn't do justice to the colour of the sky. In the painting, the sky is a vibrant orange, visible through the black framework of the tower, which dominates the centre of the painting. Above, clouds soften to pale peach. In front of the tower, a street of terraced houses is suggested in silhouette by the clusters of chimney pots on their roofs. The street narrows into a V shape as it reaches the tower. In front of the houses, rows of parked cars line either side of the street. The cars have their backs to us and are indicated simply by streaks of white, representing the curve of their roofs on one side. Beyond them, the stylized white stalks and heads of street lamps, 3 each side of the street, directly beneath the tower, the brightest point in the painting. This image is also a digital painting, based on a photo by Leslie Barron's friends, Cathy and Colm. The gas tower is only a virtual presence, reflected upside down in the glossy surface of a pub table outside the Jolly Anglers, a riverside pub opposite the tower. The sky is cloudy and grey in the reflection, and 2 tiny birds fly by the metal framework. On the table is a pint glass of Guinness, the top cut off by the upper part of the picture frame. The dark liquid is almost black, with a streak of amber at the bottom. Behind it is just the base of a black fence, with a purple shadow beneath, and the cream ground of the beer garden. A photograph by Simon Peter French was the inspiration for this painting. It's in black, shades of yellow and white. Some of the yellows are as rich and intense as an egg yolk, others as filmy as chiffon. In the centre, low in the sky above the footbridge that spans the river, is the setting sun, a white-hot disk with curving arcs of glowing yellow above it, growing paler as they rise. The white and yellow of the sunset is picked up by the waters of the River Kennet that curves towards us. In the foreground, clusters of swans and ducks paddle among the fine, flicked lines that form the ripples. The riverbank on the left is in silhouette. A curved metal railing lines its side. Glimpses of buildings emerge from under the shadows of trees, and 3 cars parked by the railing are indicated by a single curved white line for their roofs and side. The steep roofed back of a building stands beyond them. On the right-hand bank, just half of the gas tower is visible with 4 birds soaring around it. More than a dozen birds head towards the sunset, becoming smaller as they recede into the distance until they're mere specks of black. This photograph of the gas tower is titled Fiery Sunset. It's a view down Cumberland Road in Reading East. The colour has been slightly adjusted. The gas tower is a gigantic presence at the end of the road. It fills the centre of the picture, and behind it the sky and the long, low clouds are the colour of flames, a brilliant orange-red with a pink sky above. Power lines trail across the top. In front of the tower, Cumberland Road has terraced houses on either side. The rooftops bristle with TV aerials, and the shrubs and trees in the little front gardens are in silhouette. The glow from the sunset tinges some of the windows pink and tints the row of parked cars that line the road. A sign near to the end of the road is a surprisingly bright patch of blue, warning of a 6 foot 6 inches, 2 metre, width restriction. The next image was taken from Leslie's garden using a Nikon D3500 camera with a 300mm lens. The tower again dominates the centre of the photograph, a deep greenish blue surrounded by an aurora of colours in the sky. The brightest spot is low in the sky on the left, silvering the left-hand side of the tower's columns, but Leslie has adjusted the colours so it's difficult to say with any certainty the time of day. From the upper left-hand corner, the colours are warm, beginning with a deep crimson, fading through a sharp orange to yellow and finally cream. From the top right-hand corner, the colours are cool greens, dark at the top, shading to fresh, natural greens with patches of intense lime green at the base of the tower. These colours embrace the tower at the sides. In the centre, the sky is washed with a soft pinkish brown. The terraced street in front of the tower is in half light, perhaps dusk. The tops of the trees and bushes in the street and at the base of the tower are touched by a brownish red glow. One tree, directly in front of the tower, spreads its leafy branches, like the fingers of a hand. There are more birds in this image, pigeons, giving the work its title. There are approximately 120 of them, thronging around a section of the top of the tower against a bright blue sky. Each one is a tiny, individual avian portrait. Their wings are drawn back, outspread, or folded into a sharp V above their bodies. They're mainly grey and black, but some have flashes of white on their bodies and wings, and for a few, sunlight has caught their feathers, turning patches an iridescent pink. Close up, the slender columns and horizontal girders of the gas tower's frame lose their delicate appearance and display the strength of reinforced iron and steel. The columns are toughened by an X-shaped trellis of steel throughout their height, and the girders that ring the top of the tower have a double core of V-shaped struts, holding their top and bottom lengths together. Each section of the tower, where the girders meet the columns, is braced for extra strength by slim, taut rods, fastened in an X-shape. The contrast between the solidity of the tower, bolstered to withstand the high winds, and the tiny birds who ride them so carelessly, could not be more marked. The next image is a black and white photograph, and clearly the inspiration for Leslie's black and white digital painting earlier in this collection. It's the view of the River Thames, with its broad expanse in the foreground. At the lower edge of the frame, the riverbank, covered with spiky plants, spreads more than halfway across the frame. The river is calm, a mixture of gentle ripples and smooth areas where the underwater current pulls. In the far distance, the same waterfowl paddle. The sky is filled with clouds, the edges bright with sunshine. The gas tower is in the centre, sitting on the far left-hand bank. As before, it's partly concealed by trees and shrubs, but this time they're less quirky. Some are recognisable as tall, thin poplar trees. Others are bare and sprawling, and only about half the height of the poplars. To the right of the tower is the same pylon and the overhead supports for railway power lines. The small building with a spire still sits to the far right. A bright daylight image is next. It was taken from the junction of Cumberland Road and School Terrace. The sky is brilliant blue with a few wispy clouds, coloured a murky yellow by an in-camera effect. To the left, a group of tall, bare trees lean their narrow trunks and their skinny branches towards the tower on the right. There's a single bird roosting at the top of one tree. At the bottom of the trees is the footbridge over the river, with the head of a passer-by visible over the guardrail as they make their way to the unseen opposite bank. On the right, the tower is silver in the sunshine. Just half of it fills 2/3 of the photograph. It's partly obscured by a pollarded tree. The branches have been severely pruned and now end in a thick knob, each with a bristling crown of twigs. Beside them are the tall, elegant stems of pampas grass with their creamy plumes of seed heads and tufts of long, blade-like leaves. Leslie Barron's favourite picture of the tower is a sunset image. As before, in the fiery sunset image, the gas tower is viewed from Cumberland Road, the power lines trailing above it. This time the clouds visible through the black silhouette of the tower are as bright as boiled sweets, orange, candy pink, lilac and brilliant blue. The white elements of the terraced houses are visible through the fading evening light. White front doors, walls and eaves have been tinted blue by the colour adjustment Leslie Barron has applied. This photograph was taken in broad daylight from Leslie's back garden. There is no colour adjustment, no silhouetting. As a result, the gas tower is revealed for the first time as a stark, rusting, industrial structure. The frame is a pale grey. The horizontal girders are stained with black mould in places. The upright columns are red with rust, particularly on the interior of the tower. It stands out against a leaden, featureless grey sky. In front of it, slightly to left of centre, is the hand-shaped tree, smothered by small palm-shaped leaves. At the bottom of the picture is the clear roof of a greenhouse in a back garden. A weathered garden fence is visible through it. Above it, the viewpoint of this photograph means the Victorian terraced street is only represented by grey slate roofs and red brick chimneys. Ivy creeps up a couple of the chimney stacks. The chimney pots at the top are in a variety of shapes. Some are in a red terracotta, tall and slender, or curved and dumpy, others in buff-coloured clay with a lip or a crown around the top. Leslie remembers this moment. The sky went dark, and the birds went quiet. The final image is a view from below the footbridge near the Jolly Anglers, the pub on the opposite bank of the River Kennet from the tower. The footbridge cuts across the bottom of the photograph, slightly angling up to the right. Perspex safety panels on the side are braced with black metal X's running corner to corner. The gas tower is visible through them. The grey metal base of the tower is below the bridge, but most of it rises up behind it, against a clear sky. Leslie has used some colour adjustment, and the sky is intense, saturated with sapphire blue. The descriptions were written and recorded by Ros Chalmers, and sound engineering was by Gary Giles.